Would you like to introduce yourself?
So my name's Jordan Miles. I am Director of Tennis at Radlett Lawn Tennessee Squash Club.
And what events have you been holding in the last few days?
So we've been doing a Grade 3 Junior Open event at Radlett, which is Grade 3 is a high county, low national tournament, which is LTA graded. So we have juniors from all over the place coming and competing. Years ago I read a book called Bounce by Matthew Syed, who is he was #1 table tennis player in the world. I think he does columns now for one of the newspapers, one of the tabloids. So I remember him saying that the reason why he was #1 in the world, and in his street were 3 of the other top 10, and they all lived in the same area and all went to the same club. And he said what they did was they built a team, like a social environment, where they all just played all day, and they sort of got better that way. So I've always remembered that, and at Radlett I've tried to create a team-like atmosphere where they're not just teammates on the court, but also off the court.
And how's that strategy working for you?
It's going really well. So we've done things like create squads. We've done things like take them on trips abroad. We've done things like, if one of them wins a tournament, I treat them all to a Nando's, which they loved. And it's kind of, I think generally in a performance environment, so a good play environment, I think people expect there to be a distance between the coach and pupil, and there to be a strict relationship. I don't work like that. I like them to kind of be a friend, but know that difference, that when you are coaching them, that they understand the difference and that they trust you and trust what you say to them.
So how would you describe the relationship between yourself and the players that you coach?
So I'd like to say older brother or uncle or something like that, whereby you obviously have the authority to tell them what to do, but yet you still can banter with them and still also have conversations not just about tennis. So I get some of the young kids asking me all sorts of questions about maybe things that are going on in their life. So I may have a student who's miserable, and it may be nothing to do with tennis, but I think the difference between a coach and a teacher is a teacher just teaches somebody the sport, for instance, whereas a coach actually cares about their well-being all round as well. So some of the lessons I teach aren't just about tennis.
Can you give me an example?
Probably a common example with the boys may well be, I'll say girlfriend issues and things like that. That they do say things like that, or whether they've argued with their parents. So they may come on court moody, and they may I may have to get out of them that they've had a big argument with their dad or something, and then I obviously end up telling them why the dad told them off and how and end up being the person on the side trying to reason with them.
What's your goal in terms of creating these more personal relationships with the players?
I think as a coach, some coaches are quite happy to just work with all sorts of players. For example, a high performance centre where one of the big indoor centres, they just get players in from other places that are already good and work with them, and then they go on and there's that like conveyor belt of players. I like to work with a player from the beginning of their journey right through to the end, so that you develop that relationship with them all the way. So I guess my goal is always to try and work with the player and make them the best that they can be from start to finish.
So give me an example of where the start is and where the finish is for you and your players that you've worked with.
I worked with a boy who is now 13. I started working with him when he was 7, and I've worked with him all the way through, and he's now at an elite level. So he now plays tournaments around Europe. So I've worked with him for 6 years, and I guess that's an example where he may well have wanted to go to other clubs and to other places where Radlett may not be seen as an elite place. But I think because of the relationships he's built with the club and the love he has for all his teammates and the relationship he has with me, he stayed at Radlett, and I think he's benefited from it.
And would you say he's the exception to the norm, or he's typical?
I would say each their own. So some players may like that elite kind of environment, but some boys, particularly boys, need, I'd say, a role model in their lives, and they need continuity. They need sometimes when you teach these boys, it's they link you to their tennis. So when they think of tennis, you are a big part of it. So if you were to take the coach away, you can actually, and there's been cases where I've seen juniors been taken away from their coach into these high performance environments and they've given up tennis.
So do you think the secret of Radlett Lawn Tennis and Squash Club is about keeping the players on a more grounded level, and to have those personal relationships with yourself and their fellow players?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Radlett is offering at the moment to the boys.
So where do you go from here, following on from today's tournament?
So I think from here it's been a great year for Radlett. Obviously now we've got players playing in low national events. It's now a case of possibly organising more international trips and pushing the boys, pushing their levels, increasing the amount of times they play. Already discussing with people. We did one this year, and we're already talking about doing at least two next year. In addition to British tournaments, so there's also other places in England you can go where there's high-level tournaments.
So if we want to know more about Radlett Lawn Tennis and Squash Club and also the events that are being held, what would you recommend?
I update the Facebook page a lot. I use social media, so every day I update something, and a lot of it is to do with performance.
So how can we contact you directly if we want some more information?
So via the website, all my details are on the Radlett webpage.
What's the name of the website?
rltsc.com.
And any other social media routes?
We also have an Instagram, so we have Instagram and Facebook.
Which are?
It's Radlett Lawn Tennis and Squash Club. And the Instagram, I have no idea at the moment because Laura's running that. Apparently that's for young people. And I'm not young.
So, as we wrap up the interview, is there any lasting thoughts from this week's tournament?
Got to the final and just came short. He doesn't train half as much as the other boys he was playing and beating. So I think for me the goal is, even though I'm trying to create this social team-like atmosphere, is still need to get them training hard on court as many hours as I can.
And in terms of ambitions, how do you know whether you've reached your ambitions and goals as a director of the Radlett Lawn Tennis and Squash Club?
I guess the results are a byproduct of it. But to me, I'm not driven by results. If all the boys are happy and training hard and improving, I'm happy with that. I'm not necessarily driven by trying to produce the next Wimbledon champion. I just want the boys to benefit from the club, improve and be the best they can be.
But what if you do, in the end, actually develop a potential champion?
Then I would be very happy. So